I hope that you're doing well so far and that your day has been going good. And if you're currently reading anything, I would love to know what it is. So I wanted to go briefly over what I've been reading and what I recently finished. So a book that I recently finished was Maybe You Should Talk to Someone, which is a nonfiction book. It's a book about therapy and the various ways in which it can benefit people and what types of people it can benefit and the process by which it does so. I honestly did learn a lot, and I really liked the way that the book was written. It was written in the form of a story. You're following these various different characters, and it's based off of the author's experience as a therapist. But on top of that, for a reason that becomes clear in the book, she herself has to go into therapy, and you kind of see how it benefits her own situation. And I thought that that was really insightful. Where I'm from, therapy is not really a thing. And it honestly goes beyond that in the sense that it's seen as a weakness when you have to go and talk to someone about a problem. I find it very difficult to go to people for help, like even if it's my family or my friends. And I think it's just partly because of the way that I was raised and the environment and just the culture and how that is often viewed as a weakness, but it's not. It's really not. Sometimes it's not even the fact that they would give you solutions to the problem. It's just that your problems would have an outlet, and just talking about things sometimes can make you feel better. And other than that, the book that I'm currently reading is A Little Life. I'm like 160 pages in. And with A Little Life, you follow this friend group composed of 4 people: Jude, Willem, Malcolm, and JB. The first section of the book only spoke about 3 characters, and Jude wasn't really mentioned. And then now in this second section, I'm starting to get to know Jude a bit more, and that's been interesting. I still don't really have that much to say about the book. I like it. I feel like the writing is really good, but other than that, I think I need to read a bit more in order to establish where I lay. There are definitely characters that I do really like so far, and so that's something. So I just finished reading A Little Life, and I just wanted to give, I guess, some closing thoughts on this book. Honestly, I don't really have that much to say. I felt like it was very okay. And if I'm being honest, I was quite bored for the majority of the book. I felt like the first 300 pages were amazing. Like the introductions that we got, especially to the friend group, the way in which they were introduced, the way that the chapters were structured, and just the writing, it was so good. And then it completely changed, like the second half of the book, which I felt was odd. I felt like if I kept on reading, maybe the answer would reveal itself as to why there was such a major shift in the writing style and the structure of the story. But now that I finished it, I don't think there was, or maybe I need a couple days to think about it and what purpose that could have had. Beyond that, if I'm being honest, I didn't feel that much for any of the characters by the end, which was odd because at the beginning of the story, I could really feel myself getting attached to these people. And as I've said before, characters in books and their development is what drives me to read. Like, that's what I really like about books and stories, is just seeing people, even if they are fictional. And I felt like in this book, like this second half, they didn't feel like people. They just felt like devices through which stories were being told. And I guess that's what they are. I guess that's what characters in a book are. But I didn't like that feeling. I think the main reason that made me finish this book to the end, even though like halfway I was a bit over it, is purely because of curiosity. I wanted to see where the story was going, and I also had a bit of hope that the feelings that I felt towards these characters at the beginning would come back at the end. but they didn't. And I felt like a lot of characters just sort of got these very in-depth introductions and then they were sort of abandoned. I don't think I would ever pick up this book again. I also don't really see myself recommending this book to anyone. And it's not because it was bad. I know I'm saying a lot of things that might make it seem like my experience with this book was like really negative, but I think it was just more indifferent. Like, I don't feel that strongly one way or the other about it. By the end of the year, I'll probably have forgotten that I even read it. And so it just won't come to mind when I'm talking to books about people, when I'm talking to people about books. Another thing that I've been really enjoying is reading manga. When I was a kid, I read a lot of manga, and I think my favorite to this day is still Death Note. I think that manga was my first introduction into questioning morality and what it means to be good and evil, and whether or not the ends justify the means. If you haven't heard of Death Note, it basically follows this high school kid, and he comes into the possession of this book, and any name that he writes in this book, that person dies. Hence the name Death Note. It made me question the things that I consider good and why I considered them good, and which things I thought were evil and why I thought so. Was it just because someone taught me that this was evil, or did I truly believe that they were bad? What I've been reading, I read like 4 or 5 volumes of this one shoujo manga. The manga is called Library Wars, I think. When I was in my senior year in high school, one of my friends knew that I really liked manga and anime, and he went on a family trip to Japan, and he got me this one manga, which was this one. He wasn't aware of the style of mangas that I picked up, which were mostly shonen, or like the actiony ones, things like Naruto. I had a huge Naruto obsession, but I was really touched by that. Honestly, I'm still really touched by that. And so I started reading it, and it wasn't that bad. I read it again from the beginning. So I'll briefly tell you what this story is about. It basically takes place in Japan in a time period where there's heavy censorship of media. So anything that's seen as potentially harmful that is present in books could lead to its removal from the library. And essentially there are these organizations that are set up in order to protect books. And so that premise is really, really cool. You follow this main character. She joins the library defense force, and I really liked her, honestly, as a main character. And the romance is with one of her superiors. He's like shorter than her and she's tall, and that gets referenced like a lot, but honestly it was still kind of cute. I stopped it after 4 or 5 volumes because I felt like, one, it was getting really repetitive and there was nothing new being added. I felt like there was a point where I saw the character develop and then it kind of just stopped, and it was just a bunch of cute scenes after that. And also there's this side love story that is honestly really, really weird. It's this older guy and this high school kid, and I just felt like it was too much. And the other manga that I'm currently reading is called Oyasumi Pun Pun, which means good night Pun Pun. That is, I don't even know what to say about it, honestly. Essentially, it's a coming of age story regarding this one kid. Him and his family members are drawn like ducks or like animals, and I thought that was a really interesting stylistic choice, but I think it's one that works. The subject matter of the manga is so heavy and it gets so sad at certain points that I feel like by drawing these characters in this way, it kind of removes you as the reader from that situation a bit, and it doesn't feel as suffocating, I guess. In that sense, it's sort of similar to BoJack Horseman. where BoJack Horseman can deal with some pretty heavy stuff, but because at the end of the day it's a horse, it kind of just makes it feel less real. So currently I'm at volume 4 or 5. I am really intrigued by the story and where the story will go. I think it would be difficult for me to say that I enjoy it because at certain points it does get very weird and it is very, very graphic. So if you are considering to pick it up, I would keep that in mind. But I am invested enough in the characters that I think I'll just finish it and see how I feel about it then. And I think this is where I'll end the video. Hopefully the next one won't be so far away.